Most people think green engagement rings begin and end with emeralds, but the world of green gemstones is much bigger than that. Some green stone costs less than a dinner, other sells for more than the diamond, some durable enough for everyday wear, others are beautiful but honestly risky, and some green stones glow so intensely that they almost don't look natural. So in this video we are ranking green engagement ring stones from the least expensive to most expensive, including natural stones, rare collector gems, artistic alternative, lab-created options, and even green diamonds. And before we start, here's how to read the information on the screen. For every stone you'll see the approximate price range per carat for the engagement ring material, not museum piece or anything. You also see the mold hardness scale, which measures scratch resistance, and for the engagement ring, once you go below 7, stones usually need more care for long-term daily wearability, either the basil setting or something similar. We are also showing rarity. That doesn't mean how famous the stone is, it means how difficult fine gem quality material actually is to find. You'll also see the care level, which is basically how careful you need to be with the stone in the real life. Some gemstones are very forgiving and others requires much more attention. And finally, every stone has a special trait. Alright, let's start with one of the softest green stones on this list. Malachite doesn't really behave like a traditional engagement ring stone, it's usually cut as the cabochon instead of the faceted gemstone. And the reason people recognize it immediately is those dramatic greens band following through the stone. No two pieces ever look identical. Historically, malachite became especially famous in Russia, where it was used as a decorative art, architect, and luxury object. Visually, it almost looked painted. And unlike emerald, malachite is valued for pattern and texture, not transparency or sparkle. This is much more of an artistic statement stone than a traditional luxury engagement ring. Green Aventurine is the quartz with the tiny refractive inclusions that creates a soft shimmering effect called aventurescence. And because of that glow, it's often confused with the jade. But visually, Aventurine feels much softer and more casual. This is one of the most affordable green stones in the jewelry. And honestly, buyers usually choose it because they simply enjoy the calming natural green color, not because they are chasing prestige or rarity. Chrysoprase is one of the most underrated green stones in the jewelry. It's an apple green variety of chalcedonite colored naturally by nickel. And unlike emeralds, the beauty here comes from the glowing body color rather than the brilliance itself. Historically, chrysoprase was associated with Alexander the Great, who supposedly carried it as a talisman for good luck. And recently, it started quietly returning into the modern jewelry because the color feels fresh, natural, and less formal than the emerald itself. Moss agate became one of the biggest alternative engagement ring trends online recently, and honestly, it makes sense. Every stone looks different, and instead of the sparkles, buyer falls in love with a branch-like inclusion that can resemble the forest, smoke, landscape, or watercolor painting. This is almost the opposite philosophies of the diamond. Perfection matters less, personality matters more, and that's why artistic and nature-inspired buyers became obsessed with it. Green apatite might be one of the brightest green gemstones for the money. Some stones almost look tropical. The interesting part is that the name apatite comes from the Greek word for the deceive, because historically it was constantly confused with other gemstones. And honestly, that still happens today. Visually, certain green apatite can almost resemble Paraiba-like colors at the fraction of the price. But this is definitely not one of those safe long-term engagement ring stones, so be careful with that. Peridot is fascinating because it naturally exists in only one color family, and that's olive green. You can slightly shift the tone, but you can completely transform it with the treatment the way you can with many other gemstones. Ancient Egyptians call it the gem of the sun, and scientists have even found Peridot inside of the meteorites and deep mantle rock brought upwards through the volcanic eruptions. So technically, some Peridot literally comes from outside of the earth. Compared to the emerald, Peridot usually feels warmer and more golden. Quick pause. If you're shopping for an engagement ring, check our playlist in the description below. It walks you through the key parts of the process step by step, so we can make a better decision with more confidence. We also have the full videos of all of the gemstones that I'm listed over here, majority of them. Hope it helps, and I would love to work together. Moldavite is not technically a mineral. It's a natural glass created by the meteorite impact around 15 million years ago. Most Moldavite comes from the Czech Republic, and one reason collectors love it is its texture. Real Moldavite often has sculptured surface, beads, grooves, tiny internal bubbles formed during the violent creation. This stone also developed an enormous spiritual and mythical following online, and because demand exploded, fake Moldavite made from ordinary green glass became extremely common, so be careful for those. Green Tourmaline is one of the most versatile green stones in the jewelry. The color range is huge. Some stones are bright lime green, other looks deep forest green, and unlike emeralds, green tourmalines are often clean internally. This is one of the reasons designers love them. You can create bold modern design with the large clean stones without entering emerald pricing territory. Green Beryl is basically emerald's quieter cousin. Same mineral family, same crystal structure, the difference is chromium. Emerald contains enough chromium or vanadium to create a famous saturated green. Green Beryl contains less, which usually means softer color but much better clarity. And honestly, some buyers prefer that cleaner, more transparent appearance. Green Moissanite creates completely different look from the emerald. This is not soft glowing luxury, it's sparkle, a lot of sparkle actually in fact. And because Moissanite produces stronger rainbow flashes than the diamond, green Moissanite can sometimes look almost electric under certain lighting. Most buyers choosing green Moissanite are not trying to imitate natural green gemstones. They want something futuristic, modern, and intentionally different. Most people don't even realize green spinels exist, because spinels became famous mainly for reds, pinks, blues, and purples, but fine grained spinels can be incredibly sharp and vivid. And one of the biggest advantages is that spinel is usually untreated. That matters more than many buyers realize, especially in colored gemstones. Compared to emeralds, green spinels often look cleaner, brighter, and more modern. Chrome Diopside become popular because the color can look shockingly rich for the price. The strongest material comes mainly from Siberia, and in small sizes, good chrome diopside can almost resemble chrome tourmaline or even emerald. The challenge is that larger stones often become very dark. So this is one of those gemstones where smaller size actually tend to look better visually, which is usually the opposite. Sphene might be one of the most underrated stones in the entire jewelry world at the moment, because almost nobody talks about it. But visually, it can be unbelievable. Sphene has even stronger fire than the diamond, meaning when the stone moves, you get intense rainbow flashes exploding across the facets. Chrome-bearing Sphene is especially valuable because it's combined that fire with the vivid green. The trade-off is practicality. This is more of a collector or occasional wear gemstone than the traditional forever engagement ring, unless you put it in a bezel setting and be very careful with it. Jade is one of the most historically important green materials ever used in the jewelry. And interestingly, jade values toughness more than the brilliance. Nephrite jade was used historically for tools, carving, weapons, and ceremonial objects because it's incredibly resistant to breaking. That's different from hardness. A stone can resist scratches but still crack. Jade is famous because it's unusually tough. And culturally, jade became deeply associated with prosperity, status, spirituality, and protecting across many Asian cultures. Chrome tourmaline gets its intense green color from chromium, the same element responsible for emerald's green. And in daylight, some chrome tourmaline can resemble Colombian emerald surprisingly close, especially if the stones are well cut. The difference is usually clarity. Chromium tourmaline are often cleaner and brighter than the emeralds, but larger stones with a strong saturation become genuinely rare. Lab Green Sapphire is one of the most underrated engagement ring option overall, because chemically it's still a sapphire, and modern labs can create everything from the perfect clean stone to included stones that imitate natural sapphire characteristics. Some buyers specifically want silky inclusions because ultra clean colored stone can sometimes feel artificial, not natural. And compared to the natural green sapphire, pricing becomes dramatically more accessible. Tsavorite is one of the brightest green gemstones in the jewelry, and honestly, for many buyers, it's a smarter purchase than the emerald. The color is vivid, the brilliance is strong, and the stones are often cleaner. Tiffany & Co. helped popularize Tsavorite internationally after it was discovered near Tsavo National Park in Kenya. And today, collectors especially chase large stones because most fine Tsavorite are relatively small. Compared to emerald, Tsavorite usually feels sharper and more energetic. Green Sapphire is massively underrated, and honestly, this is where buyers often get surprised and confused. Because many people assume sapphire only means blue, but green sapphires can range from olive tone to the deeper forest green to teal-like color that shift depending on the lighting. And the biggest advantage here is practicality. You get the sapphire durability without emerald's fragility. That matters more than most buyers realize, especially for everyday engagement ring. Some green sapphires also contain silk or natural inclusion that soften the appearance and make the color feels more organic. Demantoid is one of the most collectible green gemstones in the world, and once you see one in person, it makes sense why. Like Sphene, Demantoid has stronger dispersion than the diamonds, so the stones throw intense rainbow flashes when it moves. The most famous material historically come from Russian Ural Mountains, and collectors especially obsessed over horsetail inclusions, the delicate golden internal structure that actually increased the value. Compared to Tsavorite, Demantoid usually feels more fiery and more antique. Lab emeralds created enormous confusion in the jewelry world, because high-quality examples can look shockingly convincing, and unlike imitation stones, hydrothermal and flux-grown emeralds have the same chemical and crystal structure as the natural emerald. The biggest visual difference is usually clarity. Many lab emeralds looks much cleaner than natural stones, and today some labs intentionally recreate inclusions and growing patterns to make the stone feel more natural. That's usually the one we recommend. Emeralds are still the king of the green gemstones. No other green stones carry the same historical presence. Cleopatra famously loved emeralds, and Colombia emeralds discoveries transformed the European luxury market for centuries. But emeralds pricing is incredibly complicated. Color, clarity, origin, treatment, cut, size, certification, all of that matter. And unlike diamonds, emeralds is not supposed to look perfectly clean inside either. Most natural emeralds contain internal features called jardines, French for garden. Those inclusions are part of the identity of the stones. Compared to Tsavorite or green sapphires, emeralds usually feel softer, deeper, and more luxurious emotionally. Few green stones shock people visually the way the green Paraiba Tourmaline does. Fine Paraiba contains copper, and that copper creates an almost neon glow that can look electrically lit from the inside. When dealers first saw the Paraiba in Brazil in the late 1980s, some reportedly thought the color had to be artificial. And honestly, even today, the fine Paraiba can look unreal. Brazilian stones command the higher prices, but important deposits were later found in Mozambique and Nigeria. Compared to the emeralds, Paraiba feels less classic, luxurious, and more like a visual insanity. Lab green diamonds opened a completely different category of the jewelry, because natural green diamonds are so rare that most buyers never even consider them realistically. But lab created green diamonds suddenly made that color accessible. And by the way, there's many other colors. I have the separate video again about it. Many are created using the radiation of HPHT process. And compared to the natural green diamonds, lab can often produce stronger and more saturated colors. This is one of the few ways buyers can realistically access the green diamond look without entering collector level pricing. Natural green diamonds exist in a completely different category from ordinary diamonds. The green color formed through natural radiation exposure over millions of years, and often that color exists only near the surface of the crystal, which creates a huge cutting challenge. Cut too aggressively and you literally remove the color. One of the most famous examples is the Dresden green diamond, and compared to the emerald, green diamonds usually appear much lighter and subtle than buyers expect. This is less about the vivid green color and more about extreme rarity. And finally, Imperial Jadeite, one of the most important green gemstones in all of Asia and in the world probably as well. The finest jadeite has the glowing translucent green appearance that almost look illuminated internally. And unlike Western luxury market dominated by the diamonds, an emerald jadeite develops its own completely separate luxury culture, especially in China. Auction prices for elite jadeite pieces can exceed many famous emeralds by far, and supply is tightly connected to Myanmar, where the finest material historically originated. What makes Imperial Jadeite fascinating is that the value feels more emotional, almost beyond logic. For some collectors, this is not just a jewelry, it's a heritage, it's a status, history, and cultural identity all combined into one mineral, which makes it perfect ending for this list, from soft artistic green all the way to some of the rarest collections gemstones on earth. If one of these stones caught your attention, we have full in-depth video here in this channel about many of them, including sapphires, emerald, moissanites, diamond, lab-created stones, and many other things. So before you buy an engagement ring, I highly recommend learning about the specific stone you're considering, because green gemstones can look, wear, and age very, very differently in real life. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.